Loop and Larry are about to embark on the most onerous and emotional journey of their lives, where difficult decisions could change everything they hold sacred. After months of seclusion and secrecy, witness the heartbreak and elation of their greatest accomplishment as they reveal Loop and Larry's all-time favorite 5 flicks. In a world filled with intergalactic space battles, metahuman destruction on a global scale, and psychopathic serial hauntings, there's only one team who can make sense of it all. When your world is overrun with rampant pop culture, call Loop and Larry, Guardians of Geek.
Oh, yeah, that is right. Yes.
74th explosion.
There you go. The explosions just keep going. They never stop.
It really is the best part of the show, quite honestly.
It is. This is the Oppenheimer of podcasts, really. Like, there's just always something happening. So
always blowing stuff up.
Just blowing it up real good all the time. Hey, I'm Loop.
And I'm Larry.
And this is Guardians of Geek. Again, like as Larry just said, it's our 74th show, and we're going to do something a little different today. But before we get into anything, we got to start talking Oscars because the Oscar nominations came out this week. We're recording on Thursday. I think it's the 25th today. And so they just came out a couple days ago. So we've been itching just to talk a little bit about them, and a bit of controversy on these ones.
Yep, a little bit. A few surprises.
Yeah. So I just got to say, this is the first year I think where I've seen. Usually I've seen like maybe half, sometimes only like 3 of the ones they've not. I've actually seen 7 of them before they had announced them. So I was pretty proud of myself on a 7. So I thought,
good job. I'm only at 4. So
you're only at 4, eh? Like I thought you'd seen a lot more than that.
No, I thought I had 2, but I've got some catching up to do.
Sometimes too, when you're trying to watch them ahead, you end up like you're guessing what you think might get nominated, and sometimes you just watch the ones that aren't but they're always a good, they usually someone's nominated from them anyways or something.
Exactly.
It just so people, if they don't know, like Larry and I try to watch all the best picture nominees at the very least, and so I just find it makes a much more enjoyable Oscars.
Well, exactly. Like, I mean, if you haven't watched any of them, and some of them are hard to come by. Like, it's lately they've been doing a lot of smaller films, which is good. I mean, you want to give kudos to those things, but they are hard to find. But that's kind of part of it. Part of the fun of doing of like watching all 10 is trying to find all 10.
Yeah.
It's not easy. In fact, our local sort of independent movie theater this weekend is running 2 of the best pictures. So I might do a double shot this weekend, knock off 2 in one day, which is pretty exciting.
I'll try to watch both those within this week so that I'm like, because I think of the 3 I have left, 2 of them are only at theaters, and one of them I can watch on demand or digitally. So so I've got a few still. I just got a few left, but it'll be done soon.
Exactly.
So all right, this will be the 96th annual awards. It's coming up on Sunday, March 10th. Of course, we'll do our Oscars recap when that's done. Yep. Feel free to go back and watch any of our other Oscar recaps, even though you'll know the results prior to. But and again, hosted by Jimmy Kimmel as well. So, but yeah, it's you don't have to break down everything because we're gonna be doing a whole Oscar special. But is there anything that jumps out at you right off the top of some of the nominations?
Well, I mean, quite honestly, like everybody, I was very surprised that Greta Gerwig did not get a director nomination. That just seems so odd to me. I mean, this was the picture of the year. I mean, probably I'd say almost more so than Oppenheimer. And it's a fantastic film. It seems very odd to me that she didn't get a nomination, nor did Margot Robbie, and I don't know why. Like I think that seems very odd to me.
Yeah, I think I know all the actors vote for actors and so it's all sort of within their category. Best Picture is nominated by everybody, and the Best Picture seems pretty good. Like I didn't think there was anything in Best Picture that I was like, oh my god, this didn't get nominated. It all seemed There's a couple that could have been swapped in or out, but I think that was pretty solid.
Yeah.
Margot Robbie, I don't know, like for best actress, like I understand like the movie's great. I don't know if she was the best actress of it. I
Yeah.
think Ryan Gosling got nominated, which was also a surprise. I think
Yeah.
he got nominated because he was more out of his comfort zone, I felt like, with this movie.
Yeah.
He doesn't really do characters like that. He doesn't do a lot of like broad comedies.
Sure.
So I think because he had done that and he got a lot more, he kind of was like, because he had done that song and everything else, I think it just, he was just out of his field of like, what he does normally. So I think, and because people are actually like saying, how's he in this movie? Like, why is he doing this? And
Yes,
it ended up paying off for him big time.
it did. But again, the Greta Gerwig, that just
She
seems
should have
very,
been nominated, I think,
yeah,
of
that just
that
seems, that
group for
seems
sure.
very, very odd to me. What else? Best actor. I was quite surprised that Willem Dafoe, although Willem Dafoe, I feel like probably would have been
He would have been best supporting, I would think.
supporting. Okay, so let's go there then.
Okay.
I Willem Dafoe for Poor Things just seems like a huge mistake. I was so uh captivated by his performance.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, I mean, he's pretty much great in everything. Like, he's one of
Yeah.
those actors that I'll see a Willem Dafoe movie. If he's in it, I'll probably go and see it because I really like his, but I just thought in this one he was so emotional and just so committed to this role. It seems so odd to me that he was not
Yeah, and
recognized.
nothing against Mark Ruffalo, but I would have swapped those two, like for sure.
Yeah,
He just, there was just something more interesting about Willem Dafoe in that, like just as a
yeah,
character, he was just something I'd never really seen before, and just
true.
like there was just something like that, just sort of like odd about him and his
Yeah.
character, and it was awesome
Well, see, I don't mind the
and
Mark
sad at the same time. Like there's something sad
Yes,
about him, and like yeah,
yeah. I don't mind
emotional.
the Mark Ruffalo nomination only because I get like the Ryan Gosling thing. He sort of played out of character.
Yeah,
Like,
he doesn't normally do
just
characters
got,
like that very often.
no,
Yeah,
he just got so weenie.
yeah.
And just like a blubbering mess. I thought that was all right. It just really surprised me that Willem Dafoe was not recognized for that. I am really pleased with the number of nominations that Poor Things got. Um, and I mean, obviously, the talk of this year is Barbie and Oppenheimer, but quite honestly, to me, my personal opinion, Poor Things was a much better movie than either one. I
I
just think,
agree. I think
yeah,
that could be the sleeper on
yeah,
this because it's, if you look at it artistically, I think
yeah,
Poor Things is like destroys both those movies. I mean, they all have merit in some way or another. I just find it's just the imagination and the like the fantasy of Poor Things, to me was it's just a beautiful film.
it was just, and essentially they all three were based on, like, they were, I don't think any of them were original screenplays because Oppenheimer is based on Oppenheimer's life.
Yeah.
um Writing adapted screenplay was, yeah, Oppenheimer, so they're all adapted screenplays, so it's not like
I would argue for Barbie that it is an original because
yes,
they're basing it on a toy, but the whole story is original. Not like this was a story told and they're adapting
yeah,
it. Like,
I
so
agree.
I would argue it, but I can see why it's not, because it's actually based on a toy. So I can
That's
see.
right, yeah. So
But
but let's just assume they're all in the same category.
yeah,
It was, to me, Poor Things was just more would have been a much more difficult movie to make
yeah,
because every single scene was fantasy, essentially,
yeah,
and on top of the look of the thing and the way it was shot, which was totally original. I mean, with the lenses that they used, and just the cinematography was totally unique this year. And then to have such a compelling story, and to have, you know Emma Stone and Mark Ruffalo and all of those people, tell the story the way they did. It just seemed to me to be a much more complicated movie to make.
yeah.
And the fact that they pulled it off, I will be very, very happy if it wins.
I think it should win. As much as like the Oppenheimer and everything, I think it's like kind of like the machine that's pushing those two through, and they're
Yeah,
both great films.
yeah,
I just think there was something about Poor Things that to me was heads and tails over those, and it was just a beautiful looking film.
it was. There was literally nothing like it this year. I mean,
No,
they, like you said, they were all good, and I mean Barbie was unique in its own way too. Like I mean there it was, sort of a toy based movie that looked like a toy world, but so there was nothing else really like that. Oppenheimer was a fantastic movie. I saw it twice. I mean I sat through 3 hours of it. It was such a good movie, but it was kind of a standard biopic. you,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like I mean it
I
was.
felt the same way with Maestro. Maestro seemed like a passion project, but it seemed like a standard bio to pick to me as well.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they did some cool things in it, of course, but that's what it seemed like to me. So,
Well, I mean, and that's what makes the Poor Thing stand out so much more, is that there was nothing standard about it.
no,
Like,
no,
it was so original. So I mean, it's nominated so many times, and I really hope that the voters recognize its value and don't just go with the popular choice,
yeah.
which I mean, at this point is probably Oppenheimer. But I just, I
I
feel
don't know
like,
though, because Poor Things has kind of come out of the woodwork at the last second, and I
yeah,
mean, it has some momentum going in. Like,
yeah,
so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that.
I don't know. I hope so. I'm putting all my money on it, all of it.
Yeah, every single dime you've
every
got, eh?
sec
Like,
every cent I have is going on Poor Things. So we'll
uh,
see how that goes.
The only other one that I thought was really cool was that like Indiana Jones, John Williams at 91 has his 54th like nomination. That's
Yeah,
insane.
it's crazy.
Like when you think back, like I mean, our childhood that's a soundtrack to our childhood, like all the movies he's done. And
Yeah,
even like people new like even millennials because he did like the Harry Potter theme. So it's like it just never ended. Like he just writes the best songs for
yeah.
movies. Like there's just no doubt about it. Hands down, never gonna be beat. I don't
No,
think.
I completely agree. I would love to see him win. I mean, I don't know, at 91, who knows how many more movies he's going to be able to pull together like this. So
Yeah.
it'd be wonderful. And I think it would be really cool if he were to win it for Indiana Jones. Like that's, I mean, as opposed to a new movie that
Yeah.
he wrote the soundtrack. It would just be like, that would be such a nostalgic moment to get
Yeah.
John Williams and Indiana Jones on the stage winning an Oscar. I just think that would just be awesome.
It
Yeah.
was so cool. The and I got to talk about production design. No, I'm joking. No,
Okay.
I think the rest seem pretty like, there's like a ton of nominations for Oppenheimer, obviously, and Barbie and sorry, not Past Lives, for Poor Things. And so, I mean, it seemed pretty standard. As there was nothing really else that really like I was like, oh my god, like this person didn't get nominated or
Yeah.
whatever. Like,
The
um,
one really exciting moment for me was that Godzilla minus one got a
I thought that
nomination.
was cool. Yeah,
The first time in 70 years of Godzilla movie history that a Godzilla movie has ever been nominated for an Oscar. So I thought that, I mean, I knew it wasn't going to be nominated for anything else. That was, I think, the only thing it was even up for. So the
yeah.
fact that it got a nomination, even if it doesn't win, I think it should. But even if it doesn't win, I'm very excited that there is a Godzilla movie in the history of Oscars now that, as part of the history of Oscars.
We should talk about visual effects because this is a geek podcast. That's the only
True.
category that actually ever has anything geek worthy to be
Yeah,
nominated.
that's
The creator, I didn't see it, so yeah. See, I know you didn't like the movie. I don't know what the visual effects were like.
so okay. So remember when we did our best of and hits and misses of 2023? That was my miss of 2023. Was
Yeah,
the only thing that it had going for it was the special effects. Like they did create a really cool world. So it makes sense to me that it would be nominated for that. It just bugs me when movies that I find are really, really weak get nominations.
yeah. So
I
it
mean,
got.
it's
Oh,
but
sorry.
it's a different department. Like it's a department that was focused just on special effects, and they did do a really good job with that. So that's fine. I accept
The,
that.
the others are obviously Godzilla minus one,
Yep.
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3,
Yep.
the which I mean to me it's like interchangeable with any of the Marvel movies, but I mean it got nominated, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Because visually Ant-Man looked pretty cool too, but I mean it didn't do well. But
No. No.
Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1,
Yep.
um, and then Napoleon, which I've never seen, but I don't know what the visual effects are like in that.
I saw Napoleon, and it was like visually spectacular because there were a lot of battle scenes, and they recreated the time period. But I mean, you've sort of seen that before in other period war pieces. Like it's not,
Yeah.
it wasn't nothing about it sort of maybe go, I've never seen anything like this before. This is remarkable. This is so cool. I mean, it's beautiful. I guess that makes sense, but I will be very surprised if that wins.
I'm surprised that Poor
Sure.
Things isn't in there, to be honest, because it's like, I mean,
Yes.
because there was a lot of visual effects in that movie. Like, it was
I don't
very
know.
cool.
Yeah, you're right. I would have swapped out Napoleon for Poor Things, 100%.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in that category, I honestly am not sure what will win. I really truly think, I mean, by all my bias aside, that the Godzilla movie could potentially win because the way they incorporated Godzilla into the real world was pretty flawless. Like it
Yeah.
really honestly looked like he was or integrated, sorry, not incorporated, but how they integrated him into the real world. It really looked like he was interacting with the humans and the world that he was in for the budget that they had. I just think that was a pretty spectacular Godzilla.
No, it's
So,
cool.
and it was also fairly subtle. Like it wasn't, I mean, obviously all of Godzilla was CG, or most of it. That's not true. There were some models that they used as well, but it wasn't a CG heavy movie. Like it wasn't it wasn't like a Guardians of the Galaxy or a Creator, where you couldn't have the movie with like every scene you could tell was CG.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's going to be an interesting category, I think.
Yeah, it should be pretty cool. But yeah, so the Oscars again, they're coming up on March 10th. So again, we'll do our recap show of them and how they went and whether we thought they should have gone the way they did. So we'll go category by category at that point, and it'll be our maybe 6th annual Oscar show.
Yeah, it'll be our 6th.
So 5 or 6.
Before we move on, we just have to do a quick note to the Razzie Award nominations that also.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I don't want to go through them all because the Razzies are the Razzies, but the one that really upset me this year was that Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny screenplay won, or was nominated for worst screenplay of the year. I mean, I just rewatched the movie 2 days ago just because I thought, okay, I need to rewatch. There is no possible way that movie could possibly be considered the worst movie of the year.
I know.
The worst screenplay of the year. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like I don't understand that. Like,
yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. I don't like the Razzies this year had some very weird nominations, and that was a big one. And I just think, are they just trying to be subversive? Like, are they trying to, stir up controversy this year? Because it just, like, often you get it. Like, you like, oh yeah, 100% that was a terrible movie, or that was a bad screenplay. This was not in any way the worst screenplay of the year. Like, not in any way. The Creator was far worse, and it may have been up there too. I don't have the list in front of me, but
yeah, I don't have it either. But
it should not have been on the list. I'm boycotting the Razzies.
I feel like the Razzies kind of like listen to some fan people, some fans, and the people were kind of down on it before it even came out. But then when it came out, everybody was a lot of people I saw that said, "Oh, I was kind of." It went in like with really low expectations, but actually really liked this movie. Yes. And it kind of hurt the box office, I think, off the top, but it was actually a great movie. I thought it was like as Indiana Jones as it can get. And it was I thought it was a good ending sort of movie for him.
Totally did. When I rewatched it a couple of days ago, it had been like, that's probably like the 3rd or 4th time I've watched it. And I feel like it keeps getting better. Like it totally fits. Like, I mean, to me, it's almost second to the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like it's right up there for me. I just thought it was such a fun story, and in keeping with Indiana Jones and who he is and the character and the story, and I thought it was great. So that I was like, I
know it kind of annoyed me too, because I'm like, it was actually a good movie. It's better than like I'm not just like, oh, I love it, so I'm gonna like it. But I didn't like Crystal Skull. Like I watched it again. I'm like, this is terrible.
Yes, yeah. We're not the kind of guys who, no matter what Indiana Jones does, we're gonna love it. No. But so anyway, the Razzies, they win the worst Razzies.
They're banned.
Yes, they're out.
I'm giving the Razzies a Razzie. That's what I'm doing. Never before happened.
No.
Hey, do you want to go to the pop capacitor? I'm excited.
Sure, let's do that.
right? It's the pop capacitor. And normally, we look at a movie or a TV show, toy, whatever it is. But this time, Larry had a really good idea. It's to break down, and I think this will be something we might do a couple times coming in the future, but a top 5. So of whatever it is. And you decided top 5 movies will be our first one that we're going to do. We might do a series of these. But so these are our favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which sounds pretty basic, but it is way harder to come up with these.
Oh my God.
Than you can even imagine. Not only that, but so first of all, I have to say this was actually my son's idea. My son and his friend were doing this. They were putting their top 10s together, and he said, "You guys should do a show about this because it's hard. It's hard to do." So I have to give credit to Sam for that.
Yeah. Well, thank him for giving me high anxiety.
Yes. But so not only do we pick our top 5, we were going to do top 10, but then that's 20 movies to talk about. We thought that was too much. Yeah. But then we decided we also had to rank them. So not only is it just like a list of our 5 movies, it is literally ranked from 5 to number 1. So when we get to number 1, that's literally our favorite movie of all time. That's hard.
Yeah, and I don't even know. Like the thing with the top 5 is this isn't the be all and end all. It is for this moment.
Yeah.
But it can change. Like it's like anybody's top 5, like or favorite music or whatever it is, favorite album of a band. It just depends the kind of mood you're in and how things shift and change. Yes. So we'll do the top 5. We'll count them down. We'll each do our 5 or 4 or 3. And then and we'll talk about the movies generically, like of what why they were what they were, and why they're on our list. And then at the end we'll reveal like just like a quick kind of rapid like other movies that didn't make it, but again,
like the full top 10, like our top 10 list kind of thing.
Yeah, so I've got a bunch, but I didn't really finish off a top 10 because I had enough time trying to do the top 5. It was like so difficult. Because there's so many factors to look at when you're doing a top 5. Like it's like, so what I did was I had put my own parameters. This is what I put on my parameters. Rewatchability is a parameter for me. Do I think about it more often than I should? And then do I own it? I guess would be like, unless it's not available. And how has it affected my life or shaped me or had impact on me was sort of my parameter.
We had the same parameters. We did. And like, we actually had to spend a lot of time trying to figure that out, because when you're coming up with your top list, like your top 5, your top 10, some people might think, are these like the best movies, like 10 out of 10 movies, like literally the critics' choice, like the best movies that are out there, that sort of thing. But for what we decided was, no, these are movies that impacted us. They could be like the worst movies on the planet, but for us, they made an impact. They did something for us, and I also, when I was talking to Loop about it, I said, I'm also picturing like the classic, I'm stuck on a desert island, I only have 5 movies to bring
that's
with.
a good way to look at it.
Are these movies that I could be happily watching for the rest of my life if I only had 5? That's so it is that. So they're not necessarily good movies, but they made an impact, and they will continue to make an impact in our lives. That's
the other thing I struggled with it too. It's like, okay, if everyone's going to hear my top 5, but then I gotta like, what if I like, what, I need this in there and I need that in there, but I'm like, it's like, I just went with it, and it's like, it is what it is. And there's going to be, whatever's in it. Like, it's like, it's going to represent me, and I don't think they're going to be too off kilter. Like, I think it's going to be fairly good. I have some generic predictions for yours. I'm not going to say titles. I'm just going to say this.
Okay.
I think you're going to have at least 1 or 2 geeky classics in there. I think there's going to be a war movie in there, and I think there might be something music based. So that's just my predictions on yours. I could be totally wrong, but I'm just guessing.
Okay. I didn't have any predictions for you, but if I have to come up with predictions off the top of my head, I'm going to say all 5 of yours star Prince.
Oh, here I'm wearing my sweater too.
That's just a prediction. I don't know if it's true, but
I will tell you right now, it was circulating. Purple Rain did not make my list, but it was circulating up there. Like,
okay.
Because how many movies did you have that you're like, okay, definitely, and then they came off the list again? Like
a lot. A lot.
I had to lock in at least 3 of them and say, okay, these are definitely on it, and then the rest of these sort of like.
Yeah, I totally did. But the interesting thing about this is that I had movies on there that I was sure were going to be in my top 5. I was like, well, they're obviously in my top 5 because that's like they're just part of me. And then the more we worked on this thing, the more I realized, you know what? They're not really anymore. Like they're not where I thought they'd be, which I thought was really interesting. When I had to break it down. So you kind of learn a little bit about yourself and your interests and how they've changed over the years. And that's why, like Loop said, this is our top 5 at the moment. Like they could literally change tomorrow if something else happens, or but it's just I encourage everybody to try to do this because it's not nearly as easy as you think. And but it gives you a kind of a neat look at your life and what milestones like these movies hit. You know what I mean? Because there are times in our lives that these things happened during, and that's why they are what they are right now.
Yeah, and there's some that I'm like, oh, I wish this was in my top 5, but I'll mention it later on, so it's not like it's not like a big deal. And we may have some of the same ones on our list at different things, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what we have on here.
I'm gonna say we don't. Right now. I'm just gonna say we might, but I'm gonna say we might not.
Okay. There'll be a few maybe surprises on mine. I like generally, but I don't know. I think mine's gonna be pretty standard, like what you might think, but then I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to see.
All right. Well, let's launch into it.
Let's start it. Let's start with number 5.
Number 5
on your list. So let's count them down. Okay, Larry, you go first, and then I'll do mine.
Okay, number 5 on my list is a little movie called Midnight Run.
Midnight Run, is that okay? Who's in that again?
It's Robert De Niro, Charles Grodin, Dennis Farina, Joe Pantoliano. I can never pronounce his last name. I just call him Joey Pants.
Joey Pants is in that. Yeah,
Joey Pants.
That's an interesting choice. I don't think I've ever heard you mention this movie.
I know, and this was the weird thing about this whole. I have watched that movie so many times, and I probably watch it at least once a year, like without even thinking about it. It's not
just
like
throw it on.
I should probably. I should probably put this on again. At least once a year, I'm like, oh, I got to put this movie back on. It's just so funny, and it's so quotable, and and Yaphet Kotto is just so dry and awesome. And Joey Pants, I gotta tell you, Joey Pants, to me, like his performance in this movie as Eddie Marscone, who's a bail bondsman, is just so natural and so like authentic. They just created this really fun world, and Robert De Niro and Charles Grodin playing off each other. The chemistry was just brilliant, and I just loved this movie. And I remember watching it in the early 90s when it came out, and just falling in love with it. And I've probably watched it, well, maybe not every year since, but a lot.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I could watch this movie pretty much endlessly.
I've maybe seen it once.
Oh, okay.
So now you got me interested in watching it again, because it's been like years since I've seen it. Like I think I saw it when it came out, or like on video or whatever when it first came out. But
it holds up.
Yeah. Charles Grodin is like one of those people that's like was really funny.
He was like he had
funny.
Such a dry sense of humor. Like he just and they just, I don't know. It's also directed by Martin Brest, who directed Beverly Hills Cop. So it's it's kind of got that vibe. That because De Niro is a bounty hunter essentially. So it's kind of a cop movie-ish thing. So it has very much has a Beverly Hills Cop feel to it, which I also love. But anyway, that one is number 5 for me.
That's cool. That's a great pick, actually. Like it's an interesting pick. Yeah, just mostly because it's like I know you, but I don't think I've ever heard you mention this movie. But that's the thing. There's movies in our collections that we watch that like we just don't talk about or whatever.
Exactly.
So.
And it's not really a geeky movie. Like it's not.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
But it's.
I think the love of movies alone is geeky. Like,
that's right.
You know what I mean? So. All right, my number 5, and this again, it'll be, you might be surprised it's in my top 5, but it's a movie you'll know like right when I say it. Clash of the Titans,
of course,
1981, directed by Desmond Davis. Harry Hamlin's in it, Laurence Olivier, Burgess Meredith, Bobo the Owl. Medusa, like they're all lit. Pegasus, they're all in it. And it's a movie for me that it was just, I was getting into Dungeons and Dragons, and I loved that whole like sort of swords and sandals, sort of like dragons and fantasy. And this was like my gateway into all that, and it just solidified it for me because I loved everything about this movie. Like and even when I watched it just last year again, because Harry Hamlin was going to be at one of the cons we went to, so I met him for the first time, and I was like, it's just a well-written movie. Like I love it's like a quest, and it's just the way it's paced is cool. It's got like all these great moments with Medusa, and like it's so cool. And of course, Ray Harryhausen, like who did all the Sinbad movies, does all the creatures and things, and it's just one of those movies that's like like a movie that you just could sit and watch, and I just love it like from start to finish, and I love the gods, and I love like there's so many elements about this movie that I love.
Yeah. So here's my big surprise about that movie is that I'm surprised it's only number 5 for you.
Oh, really?
Because you do talk about that movie a fair bit. And so I would have thought that it might have been closer to number 1. So that's interesting. Now I'm really curious to know what movies you like more than that, because I thought that was the one you liked.
It's not like the greatest movie of all time as far as like for most people, but it's just the elements of it I love, and then it's just a well crafted story of this quest. And also I will argue as one of the greatest villains of all time in it, which is Calibus, which as a kid like gave me nightmares. That guy is so frightening in that movie, and it's just like Neil McCarthy played him, and he was like so good. And it's like still to this day there's parts in that I just think about way too much, like when the statue's head falls off and then the eyes open on it, and like these little moments that I just are embedded into my head, and I just can't stop thinking about. But just fascinated by that movie as a kid, and I still am now. I love it. So that was my number 5.
Good number 5.
Yeah, there you go.
Moving on to number 4. You ready for this one?
Yep.
The Party.
Starring Peter Sellers.
Peter Sellers. You have seen it?
Yeah. A couple times.
I didn't know if you will have seen this one. This is a movie that I adore. Like I watch this movie way more than I probably need to, but it's classic Peter Sellers slapstick, just like physical comedy. But it came out in 1968, so it stars Peter Sellers, Gavin MacLeod, our beloved Captain Stubing from the Love Boat, and Claudine I don't know if you pronounce it Longet or Longette, but she's in it, and it was directed by Blake Edwards. Came out in 1968, so it's an older one, but it's just there's not a lot of dialogue in it. But Peter Sellers plays a actor named Harundi V. Bakshi, and he's just a bumbling oaf. Like he means well. He's just excited to be an actor in a movie, and Gavin MacLeod is the director of this movie, and essentially he ruins this movie. Like he wrecks it. I don't want to give too much away in case people want to watch these movies, but he wrecks this movie. Anyway, he by some weird circumstance ends up being invited to an industry party, like a party that the director was, or the producer of the movie was hosting at his house.
Yeah.
Inadvertently becomes a guest at this party, so he's totally out of place. This is like a super wealthy, like rich party, and this bumbling actor dude is just there, and it's just like gag after gag after gag. And I mean I've seen it so many times, and for whatever reason it still makes me laugh. And it's just, I mean, it's culturally inappropriate. I need to say that right now, because Peter Sellers is playing like a Middle Eastern actor, but he's got brown makeup on, and so it's culturally not appropriate anymore. But it probably wasn't at the time. But it's just, I mean, Peter Sellers is just so brilliant. I really like him, and this one is just classic Sellers, and I love it, and I watch it a lot.
Yeah, I've seen it, and it's really good. Like I watched it years ago, but so I can't remember details of it, but I remember watching it and going, this is actually a really funny movie. It's very well done, and it's like, and again, Peter Sellers, another like typecast as the Pink Panther, as Inspector Clouseau, and then this movie, I actually had a chance to see him in doing something else, and
Yes.
he was a funny guy. Like he was just such a good actor.
Yeah, like his comedy is subtle but really funny, like really effective. And this one is just like I said, there's not a lot of dialogue. It's just a lot of watching him trying to bumble through this party. It's just great. I love it.
That's awesome.
That's my number four.
Number four.
Yeah.
All right.
What's your number?
My number four is Lost Highway by David Lynch.
Oh, interesting. Right.
1997. Bill Pullman, Patricia Arquette, Balthazar Getty, and Robert Blake, who has had a bit of some run-ins with the law. But
Balthazar, Balthazar Getty. Whatever happened to him?
I don't know.
Wow. Okay.
Fell into the David Lynch vortex or something. I'm not sure. But I love David Lynch, and you know that. And it's like, and I picked this movie specifically because I liked him going into this movie, but as soon as this movie came out, it just solidified my love for David Lynch. Like it had all the David Lynch elements in it that are in a lot of his movies. Like they're always like a dark sort of look at, like if you looked in the mirror and you saw the opposite of what you were. And it's just he's just so many like surreal things in these movies. And I love his style. And to me, David Lynch is the first director that I've liked that's an actual artist. Like he's not just a director. He's he's got a vision, and in art, you can't explain what it means. And he won't even say, "Oh, this is what this means." He won't say it. It's up to you to take it and you decide what you think this movie means. And you can go online and watch breakdowns of all his movies from people, but and they're all different because everybody has sort of a different feel of each of them. But something about Lost Highway I loved. I love the again, like the dual sort of personalities of Patricia Arquette, and like there's two different worlds, almost like a dark world, and it's just like holding a mirror up to ourselves and seeing sort of a darker side of ourselves that we hadn't seen before. But it's like, and again, like, you know how I like Twin Peaks and I love Eraserhead and I like all those, but this one just for me was like the first like kind of like movie after post Twin Peaks where I was kind of really getting into them, where I just like, this is like solidified. It just had that darkness and that, again, like surreal. And I'm like, I love a movie where I go in and I'm like, I don't know what's going on in this, but I love it because I don't, and I can decide what I think is going on. And he sort of lays it out in that sort of like the weirdness and the quirkiness of even like of Twin Peaks, but of the quirkiness of the way David Lynch directs is so cool. So I definitely I struggled with like the Lynch movies because I kind of put them all on, like Mulholland Drive would probably be up here too, but this is the one that really like solidified David Lynch for me was Lost Highway, as far as like he could direct forever and I'd still go watch everything he does. Like it's so good.
Yep. I have known that about you for as long as I've known you, that you are a Lynchian. I guess. That doesn't surprise me. You have talked to me about this movie before, and I've seen it, and I think you actually made me watch it. So I think that's why I saw it. I like Lynch as well, but I'm more of a mainstream. Like I like Blue Velvet and Elephant Man. Like more of his sort of straightforward,
like straight story.
Not more, maybe Blue Velvet wasn't exactly straightforward, but it was a bit more. But I definitely understand the appeal of this. Like it's like being able to choose your own adventure kind of thing, like figuring out what this means. That's pretty cool. Like I think that's a really cool thing.
There's just so much surreal stuff in his things that are just so weird, and like you can't even describe them, and the characters are all kind of weird. And I love his when he directs, his sense of space. And Wes Anderson does this a little bit too, but just like lines don't have to be rapid fire. Like he'll stay on a scene with two people barely saying anything, and it's the space that he creates between lines and that actually make it creepier or like more tension, because he's just really good at playing with space and objects and sound. He's one of the first directors I knew that really used like bizarre sounds or everyday sounds to make them creepy. Like a ceiling fan is suddenly creepy. Like it's like, you know what I mean? Like it's just he sees things and things that like other people don't, and it's like, and plays with claymation and things like that are weird, like kind of odd, like art forms and painting and things that are just other people don't, and it's just so awesome. But anyway, that's my number 4, Lost Highway, 1997. There you go.
Excellent. All right. moving right along to our third pick. So this is our top three now. We're in our top three.
Oh, top three.
Okay, this is the one that you may be surprised about.
Okay.
It is Star Wars,
Yeah.
the Phantom Menace.
Really? Okay.
Yes. And I surprised myself with this one, quite honestly,
So
because
over all the other movies, this one was the
all,
one that you okay.
yeah, over
But
all
it
the
doesn't
other,
necessarily mean the other ones aren't in here. Like it's just like we don't know
that,
number one and two. You never know.
I'm just saying this one, but this I surprised myself by having it in my top five, not like let alone my top three. But I was thinking about it, and you know, because I mean, I initially thought, well, A New Hope is going to be in there. Like, of course, A New Hope is going to be in my top 10 because I'm a massive Star Wars fan, and that was the first one, and I've been watching that one for 40 plus years. You know,
Yeah.
so of course that one's got to be in there. But then I was thinking more about it and realized, so when the first Star Wars movie came out, I was 6 years old, so there was no hype for me. It was just like a movie that was coming out, and it, you know, my mom took me to see it, and I loved it, and it became like a an obsession, obviously. But leading up to it, it was just I didn't know anything about it. It was just I went to
Yeah.
see it. And then the other two, Empire and Jedi, there was obviously more hype, but I was still pretty young, so I wasn't, you know, there was no social media, there wasn't, you know, so it was exciting that they were coming, and I got to play with the toys and play with my friends with the toys and all of that stuff. But the difference between those ones and Phantom Menace is that there was a 26-year gap between Return of the Jedi and Phantom Menace. So by in that amount of time, we became like huge Star Wars fans. Like
Right.
we were, you know, that was Star Wars was our thing, and you know, we had those three movies, but that's all we had at the time. We had the books, but we didn't have anything else, so we were huge Star Wars fans and loved it. And then all of a sudden it was coming back again, and there was like several years, at least a couple of years of hype, you know, when they first announced it, and then making it, and then trailers and teasers, and so the excitement building up to a Phantom Menace was unlike anything I had experienced with Star Wars before that,
Yeah.
right? And so, and you, I mean, we saw it together. It was came out in 1999. We saw it together, and it was just like mind blowing. It's not the best movie. Like this is one of those that it's not the best of the Star Wars movies, you know, by a long shot sometimes,
Yeah.
but it made such an impact on me. Like first seeing Darth Maul, like he was the coolest villain I had ever
Yeah.
seen. I mean, Darth Vader was cool, but this guy was awesome. And the music, you know, Duel of the Fates that played when Darth Maul was on, that piece of music was like just rocked my world. And and then I mean, not only that, but you and I went to see it, and then that's that when we started the same day we like drove across the border to see it.
Yeah. We saw it again.
So we've never like that never happened with the first three. Like we'd see them in the theater, and you know, probably saw them once or twice or whatever it was. But we were so into this. Like this was such a big moment in our lives that Loop and I like went to see it on opening night, like the first show opening night of like 7 o'clock, I guess. And then literally like got in the car and or maybe it was like an afternoon show. I can't even remember. Got in the car, drove across the border to watch it again in Michigan, in the States, so that we
I don't
could.
know why we did
I
that.
don't know why we did that, but we did it because we wanted to say that we watched it on opening day in two different countries on the same, like on the same day.
And remember too, this is back when you couldn't reserve seats. Like you
No,
had to
yeah,
wait. And I remember for one, I don't know which one it was, but we waited like forever. Like,
yeah. I totally remember that. On top of which, it was one of the first dates I ever took my wife to.
oh yeah,
she,
it's awesome.
she was with us when we went to see it, so that was something too. But yeah, it was just so I realized that like when I go back to watch a Star Wars movie on Disney Plus or whatever, I most often, quite honestly, pull that one up, and it's because of the hype. Like the pod racing was so cool, and it still holds up. Like the special effects still hold up, all of that stuff. And so I find that I tend to gravitate towards that particular movie when I'm going to watch a Star Wars movie just out of the blue. So I had to make the call, and that's why Phantom
Wow.
Menace is in my top three because it was so impactful. Like it was such a huge lead up, and it was so exciting. And I don't think we've had that. Like I mean, there was a gap between I know what was the third in that trilogy called.
Oh, I don't know why I can't. All I could think of is the Force Awakens, but
yeah, no, but there was a
yeah,
gap between that one and the Force Awakens, so there was excitement there again, but it wasn't the same level. Like it wasn't,
no,
when the J.J. Abrams movie came out, it wasn't the same level of hype. There was a lot of hype and a lot of like anticipation and excitement, but for some reason it just wasn't quite the same as there was after 26 years of waiting for. And I think part of it was that we weren't expecting it. Like
yeah.
we didn't know that that was going to happen, and then all of a sudden, what? We get more. So yeah, so that's why it's made my top three.
We definitely need to do a top 5 Star Wars movies, I think,
Yeah,
at some point. Like it's a,
I
but
agree.
and again, yours could change based on like when we do it. But
Yep.
uh, for me, the one thing about that movie that I loved was, I mean, there were some very like big moments in it. Of course, Darth Maul was awesome and all that.
Yeah,
But it was the first time we'd seen any extra Star Wars, like the universe continue,
yeah, yeah.
like even though it was a prequel, but it was still like new content that we had never seen.
That's
And
right.
so it made it way more exciting than,
Yeah,
because it was like, wow, that finally like someone's taking this universe and doing something with it. Like this, like considering how popular Star Wars was, it surprised me no one had done anything with it. But,
yeah,
and I don't know whether it was just because Lucas didn't want anything done with it, or I don't know what the whole reasoning was, but all we had was the Star Wars Christmas special, and
yeah.
that was all we had for anything extra for
Yes.
Star Wars. Like,
Yeah.
and so
I mean,
it,
except for the books, like but the books are a different
yeah.
thing. You see these movies.
But again, like it was so great. And then, but I remember, yeah, the hype was insane, and I like that movie. I think it's a great movie, and it's like, I don't know if I'd rank it as my top, but it was definitely up there, like
Yeah,
for
it
sure.
just yeah, but that was my surprise, that I surprised myself by how high up it ranked on my
Yep,
list. So
that's
there you go.
awesome.
Number three for me. What's number three for you?
Number 3 for me is Pulp Fiction,
Okay,
1994.
interesting.
I was blown away by Pulp Fiction when it came out. I don't know, because it was non-linear, like it was like you jumping around. There's this, I can't think of a movie that has like a cooler, first of all, cool soundtrack, cool actors,
Yeah,
cool setup, cool stories, like like quotable like to death.
yeah,
It just became part of my fabric at the time. And it was like I'd seen like, movies like Taxi Driver and Scorsese movies and stuff, but I never, that was the first movie that really got me into like just a different way of thinking about movies, and a grittier sort of movie than the ones that had been presented to me in the past.
yeah.
And I don't know what, I saw it like I think 5 or 6 times at the theater at the time. I just couldn't stop seeing it. I didn't care
Yep.
about anything else at that time. I was all in on Pulp Fiction, and
Yes.
I loved it, and it was just so cool. And and because of Tarantino's like love of movies, it made my love of movies even bigger, because I
Yeah.
was like, this guy's so excited about it. I need to be excited about it, because I
Yeah.
don't want to be left behind in that. And it got me more into like the exploitation movies and blaxploitation movies and all these like subgenres that I had never really watched a lot of, but I got more into those. And I think it all like comes off of that movie. Like, I mean, I might have been into some of that at the time. I can't quite remember, but um definitely that movie was a kickstart again for me, for my love of movies. Like I just, Travolta and like Samuel L. Jackson, and like Samuel Jackson's been playing that character for the last like 30 years. Like he's
Yes.
still like, he's never really left it. Like even
No,
though uh
it's
like
true.
it just, Tarantino's eye for these older actors and being able to put them into something and make like create this movie, and you're like, Travolta's cool again. Like it was
Yeah.
just, and so cool. Like, and just every scene was like, something was cool about every scene in that movie. There's not a scene in it where I'm like, oh, I don't like this scene. It's like everything's got something cool about it. Like, so
And the fact that there's multiple stories that they're telling, like they're telling Bruce Willis's story and uh Samuel L. Jackson's story and all of these different stories, but every one of them is intriguing. Like
yeah,
you follow all of them. There wasn't a character that was dull. Like none of
no,
them were dull. But you're right. It totally reintroduced like um t- um um oh my gosh, now I just forgot his name. The dancer. Samuel L. Jackson's partner.
oh, like Travolta.
Travolta, my gosh, yes. Travolta's career was pretty much non-existent before that movie. Like it
Yeah,
had
he did like the
much washed
baby, like
up.
who's talking to or something or whatever.
Yeah,
Look who's
like
talking.
nothing. Yeah, like he was sort of a forgotten entity at that point, and then he brought them back. But he knew so much Tarantino about movies,
Yeah,
and I don't think we had ever seen a movie based on like the coolness of movies. You know
yeah,
what I mean? And the grindhouse stuff, and he's just so knowledgeable about it. But just the way he wrote, like nobody had ever written movies with dialogue like that. Like we
no,
had just never seen, and we'd never seen movies before like that one. It was just I totally agree. That one was a struggle for me not to put in my list. It is not in my list, and it was a real struggle because
yeah.
it was.
And like think of all the movies that came out after Pulp Fiction that were trying to be like Pulp Fiction.
Yep.
Excuse me. It just went on forever. Like it was
It
just
did.
like everybody had to have a movie like a Pulp Fiction movie. And Reservoir Dogs, even though it came out before, obviously before that, I'd never seen it until Pulp Fiction came out, and then I had this renewed interest for Tarantino, and then I discovered Reservoir Dogs after, and that because Reservoir Dogs wasn't like a huge movie or anything.
No, it
Pulp
wasn't. It
Fiction
was
was a huge movie. Like that was the one that really just launched them into like into pulp
superstardom.
culture. Like, but
Yeah. Yeah.
his newer movies, some of them are I like elements of all his new movies, but some of them are like with the Hateful Eight, like which I was super excited about. Is sometimes he's into his own writing almost too much. He needs a bit of an editor on some of his stuff, but still he's always got something cool to give us in every movie. So, but anyways, Pulp Fiction, that was my number 3.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree 100%. All right. So number twos. So number two is not going to be overly surprising, I think, after my Star Wars pick at number 3. I'm going Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark
Okay.
at number 2. Because it's Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And like the more I sort of age, the more I realize that Indiana Jones, the whole Indiana Jones franchise is on par with me on par with Star Wars for me. I mean, I'm like obviously a diehard Star Wars guy, and I love everything about it, and my life revolves around Star Wars essentially. But really, Indiana Jones is equally as important to me. I think the only difference is there's not as much of it.
Yeah.
Now we have Star Wars TV shows and there was all the movies and everything else. For the longest time, we only had the original trilogy, and those ended like mid 1980s. Then there was the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles and things like that, but those weren't quite the same. There was no Harrison Ford, although he was in
Yeah.
one. But so there just wasn't as much like content for Indiana Jones, which is why I had thought that it wasn't quite as big for me. But then I realized no, it's on par. Like I absolutely I could not live without my Indiana Jones movies. And really, I mean, I still like I love all 3 of the original trilogy. But it's just the first one is still will always be like just one of the greatest movies I've ever seen, and it still
Yeah.
is, and it still holds up. And the like everything about it, the sound effects, the whip cracking, the locations, the time frame, like when it takes place, and it's just so, and just the cool factor, like he's just so cool. Harrison
Yeah.
Ford is just awesome.
It's not about Harrison Ford. Like, I mean, you loved him as Han Solo, but then it's like all of a sudden he's got this new character. You're like, this guy's like super cool. Like, there's just
Yes,
everything about him is like so awesome. And it's like,
it is.
I don't know. Indiana Jones, Raiders is such a great film. Like, it's just top to bottom, right? Like from the beginning, it's just like a great story, a cool setup. It's just, and I love like the whole 1930s sort of aesthetic or whatever of these like serial sort of movies that they were kind of playing off of. So
Yes. And the other cool thing about these movies is, and it's something that I didn't even know about until much later after watching them, is that there are little nods to Star Wars in them because George Lucas was a producer. So like there's like it doesn't take itself too seriously. Like, I
yeah.
mean, in Temple of Doom, at one point they're driving down a street and they pass Club Obi-Wan, with a big huge marquee, like a big huge sign that says
Yeah.
Club Obi-Wan. R2 and C3PO are actually little hieroglyphics in the first movie in Raiders of the Lost Ark when he's looking for the Ark. If you look carefully, you can see R2D2 and C3PO carved into the hieroglyphic wall behind him. It's things like that are just like those are Easter eggs that we didn't even know that Easter eggs were a thing at the time.
Yeah.
So we didn't even know. So even like years later, we're still discovering little things like that that were hidden in this movie. So I mean, as far as rewatchability goes, there's lots of reasons to rewatch, and it's just awesome. And I think that's why both of us liked Dial of Destiny so much,
Yeah.
because it felt most like Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like of all the movies that have come out, I feel like that one was closer to Raiders. And that's why I really like it a lot, because it had that same sort of feel, even though it was like 30 years later. But
they did do the flashback of him, and they
Yes.
de-aged him, and it looked awesome. So
amazing. Yeah. So that is my number 2 pick for movies there.
that's awesome. That's a great pick.
Yeah.
My number 2 is Halloween, 1979 or 78.
interesting.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I love John Carpenter, and this movie is like, for horror movies, for me, is like the be all and end all of horror movies. Like it's like there's other horror movies I love, like that could have probably dabbled in the top 5, but this one was one. Like it's just, I love the whole idea of Michael Myers. I love the indie feel of this movie.
Yeah.
Like it's not a big budget like horror movie. It's pretty simplistic. Like Michael Myers escapes, goes back to the Myers house. It's that, in that sense, it's very simplistic.
Yep.
But for something so cheap to make, the scares are there, and it's got like a uniqueness to it too. It's like where Michael Myers is he's hangs a person or dresses, like puts a whatever, like a blanket over him, puts glasses on, like he's almost childlike in a way, as well as he's a killer. And so it just, I don't know, it just, the music, like the John Carpenter, like the soundtrack was awesome. The sound effects he uses. And there's so many things in it, like from that pumpkin shot at the start where they're zooming in, like it's just, there's so much style to it for such a simple movie, really. But John Carpenter to me is like, again, someone that can make something out of like zero budget, you know what I mean? And make it work. And this movie just has a huge impact on me. Like I still watch it today, and I just, the first one, not the one where like way later on, like like the later Halloweens, but kind of watered it down a bit. But I still love them. But I love the character of Michael Myers. But the first one to me is like just a classic. One of the first like really good slasher films, and it's hard to beat. To me, it's just I think about it way too much. Like I think about like just the whole idea of it. I think about a lot.
Absolutely. And the other cool thing about it was that it was so scary because it was so confined. Like a lot of the action happened inside Laurie Strode's house.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So like it was claustrophobic and could really I mean, not Michael Myers was a bit of a supernatural being kind of, but I mean,
like later on he was, but in that movie, like standalone without seeing the other ones, you'd be like, this could happen. Like the boogeyman could be a thing. Like this guy, like for years after, I always like checked my windows to make sure I was looking if I was by myself, like because I thought of that movie, and it had huge impact on me because it was very realistic.
It was like when she's trapped in her closet, like that's terrifying. Like there's no way out. Like she's in her closet and he's right outside. There's no escape. Like those kinds of things were absolutely terrifying. But you're right. It was such an easy thing, like not expensive. Like it's a closet. But the scare and the way he shot that and the way it made you feel was so unique, and it still is. It still holds up. Like it's still scary.
Yeah, it's just one of those movies that just I loved, and I love John Carpenter, and I own all his movies, and he's just a director. I just there's something simplistic again about his movies that I just love, and the characters and the way he shoots and everything else is just he's awesome.
Yep, I completely agree. That's an excellent pick, number 2.
Yeah.
All right, so we are up to our number 1 movie of all time as of this moment, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so my number 1 movie as of this moment right now is Kill Bill. And that is
Kill Bill.
That's Kill, but I'm including both volumes. Kill Bill Volume 1.
It's one movie basically.
I'm not. It doesn't complete the story after Volume 1, so I have to include both as one. Kill Bill is like, to me, almost a perfect movie, like virtually perfect in every way. It is, the story is so compelling. The way it's shot, like visually, it's vibrant. Like there's a lot of cool colors. Like I feel like it's almost like a comic book movie that was not based on a comic.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you think about it like that, like it looks
It's like it reminds me of anime. Like
yeah,
it's
yes, exactly. So it feels like that. It feels like a comic book world that was not based on a comic book, because it's surreal. Like it's surreal. Like the violence is surreal. The way they move, like that whole scene with Uma Thurman. Sorry, before I go on any further, this came out in 2003 and 2004.
yeah.
So that it's old. Like, it's
Yeah.
been for a long time. But the scene with Uma Thurman fighting the Crazy 88 in
It's
the
such a
House
good
of
scene. I
House of
gotta watch
Movies.
this again. You got me all excited
It's
about it.
it's just so crazy, and but it's so over the top. Like it's the whole movie is over the top, but it's not unbelievable. Like
Yeah.
I mean, Uma Thurman is literally fighting 88 yakuza, like Japanese like assassins with swords, and manages to kill all of them except for one. Like that, ordinarily that would be ridiculous. You'd be like, "There's that's just dumb." Like this is, but somehow he pulls it off and makes you believe that she actually has the skills to do this, and it's so cool, and you totally root for her. And that's the other thing, is that you do genuinely like want her to get her revenge. You want the bride to get her revenge, and she just slowly makes her way through the deadly viper, what do they call the deadly viper squad,
Yep.
deadly five, something like that, in order to get to Bill, to kill Bill.
Yeah.
And it's just brilliant. Like it's just the music again. It's Tarantino. I've decided after all of these lists, Tarantino is my favorite director. It was really hard for me not to populate my whole top 5 with Tarantino movies, because I easily could have put Pulp Fiction on there. I easily could have put Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because I love that movie. But really, Kill Bill is to me, it's just perfect. In fact, it's so good that I have like over the years collected multiple versions. Back in the day, we used to collect all the Star Wars. Like anytime Star Wars would come out on
Yeah.
media, I've done that with Kill Bill. So I've got a box set from Korea. I've got the unrated, or the special edition from Japan, which has that crazy 88 scene in color.
Oh, that's
Because
cool.
in North American cinemas, it had to be shot, it had to be converted to black and white, because the censors thought that there was too much blood,
Yeah.
and so they had to convert it to black and white. But in Japan, they kept it in color. So I managed to track down a copy of that. So I've got the color version. I've got blue. I've got steel books. Plus I've got the bride's sword and Bill's sword and Bud's sword. All 3 swords. And Bill's sword is actually signed by David Carradine. He was in town and I met him and he signed it. But
That's wild.
so it's Kill Bill is it for me. Like I could watch that movie over and over and over and over and over.
It's so good. That, again, like Tarantino was like just like his homages to things, and he just kind of took the best of other things, and was able to create his own like original movie out of it. Like, and it's just it's so cool. And again, everything he touched was cool. Like it's just there's a coolness to everything he touches, and it's like I don't know what it is, how he does it, or
I
whatever.
mean,
But you can't see it behind me because this is part of my movie collection. But there is a Tarantino section in
yes.
here. I don't know if it's, yeah, I think it's down. I
Yes.
think it's the this way. I think over, but I have a Tarantino section with all his movies and stuff. But it's like
So
so
good. I
good.
mean, the fact that in this movie he brought out the theme song to the Green Hornet TV show from the 60s, and put it into one of the scenes where Uma Thurman is riding her motorcycle through Tokyo, or through
Yeah,
Tokyo. It's just like, that's a really cool piece of music that nobody had even thought about in decades, because the show was from the 60s, but he found this piece of music and revitalized it and gave it new life. And it's just so, you realize how cool movies are when you
yeah.
watch a Tarantino movie, because because he does bring, look, like right at the beginning of Kill Bill Volume 1, um before the opening scene, he puts the Shaw brothers logo, like the actual Shaw Brothers logo at the beginning of the movie. The Shaw Brothers made a lot of like karate movie, like kung
Yeah.
fu movies back in the day, and so he somehow got their actual logo animation, and that's what starts this movie exactly from the original, like not doctored or anything. It's just there, like it, so you know right off the top that he's paying homage to all of these classic films that that inspired him, and now they've inspired us to go and watch them because they're just what he does with movies is just unbelievable, I think.
The I read his book. It's called a book, Larry. It's got pages and stuff in it, and you read it. It's called Cinema Speculation, and so what he does, he breaks down all these different movies, and it's like you're reading it, and you're like, I got to see these movies. Like they're just, and a lot of them are like low budget or like these kind of gritty crime movies, and he was watching movies from day one and going to theaters and sneaking into R-rated movies, and his mom would bring him into R-rated movies, and so he had like, so a lot of those movies, especially in this book, are ones that really inspired him to do what he does. But he's pretty funny. Like the book's actually quite interesting as he breaks these movies down because he doesn't hold back on whether he likes somebody's performance or didn't or whatever. But like just the look of Uma Thurman, like her outfit, the yellow outfit is so iconic. It's just, yeah, that's a great pick. Like I just
that yellow outfit is the same outfit that Bruce Lee wore in Enter
yes,
the
that's
Dragon.
right. Yeah.
So I mean, it's even things like that. Like he brought that directly from the iconic Bruce Lee outfit and put it on Uma Thurman. I mean, I don't know how many people even would have known that,
Yeah.
but those are the little things.
Well, that's how he did it so well because most people wouldn't, because if you see that outfit, you associate with her before you even associate it with him. So he just so good. So good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Here you go.
All right. My number one. And this is this is actually going to be a surprise for you. This is a movie that it came out in 1981. I've absolutely loved it my whole life. It's called Raiders of the Lost Ark. You may have heard of it. You may have heard of it. And I was trying to hold back my excitement when you said it at number 2.
I literally thought you were going to say Night Patrol.
No.
I was 100% sure that was going to happen.
Even though Night Patrol is one of my favorite movies of all time, but it's like, but it's not a good movie. If there's a secret shame category, that would be in that, but number 1. But yeah, I tried to hold back on Raiders a little bit because it did have so much impact on me. It was just like everything from like the real stunts, like everything they did in that movie was just like a masterpiece. Like and the pacing of it's perfect to me. Like to me, it's like a perfect movie. Like it's just got, the pacing's great. Like the whole snake scene was so cool. It still creeps me out to this day, even when I watch it now and I know they've got glass in between them and whatnot. It still like creeps me out. Like it was just so cool. Like and then the music, like you cannot beat the Indiana Jones theme. I think to me I like that better than Star Wars, to be honest. Like there's just something about it. Like has like a full adventure feel to it, and it's so good. And also, and this is like a little unknown fact, you'll know it, is that I in high school did all these movies, in high school movies, and you've seen them, where I played like an Indiana Jones character named Harrison McKeon, who was basically a mix between James Bond and Harrison McKeon. So I was like worked for the government, but I had to go find artifacts and like things like the Lost City, or whatever, like these all these crazy things. And they were terrible, but kind of fun at the same time. Awesome. but I was like that's how much impact it had on me, because I even looked like Indiana Jones in it, like almost like directly looked like him. Like it was like it wasn't even any way of me trying not to look like him. Like it was just it was crazy. Like, so anyways, huge impact on me. I just like, there's just so much about it. It was just again, like almost like a perfect movie to me. I can watch it over and over again. During the pandemic, it played at one of our local theaters. I went and saw it again on the big screen. And each time I see it, I notice something I didn't notice before, which is to me something that's great about any movie, that every time you watch it, there's like, I didn't see that before. I didn't notice that, or so anyways, awesome.
And the thing that you just mentioned is that all the effects are physical. Like there was no CG. So everything you're watching actually happened. I mean, there's obviously some miniatures, so not everything is life size, but everything is real. Like there's like when a truck blows up, it's really blowing up. When Harrison Ford is being dragged underneath a a truck, it's not necessarily him, but there is a guy being dragged underneath a truck as it's driving. Like,
other than the ghosts at the end, like
oh
the
yeah,
spirits, other than that, like it's the stunts are all are like real. It's just
oh
like
real.
that part. I mean, but
And
even
even
at that, like even remember watching it for the first time and you're like that whole scene with the ghost and the one comes right at him and then their face
yes,
turns all like that freaked me out at the time.
yes.
Like it
But
was crazy.
but the thing is that those are like real, like, or either they were drawn or they were real figures that were like shot and then superimposed over the
Yeah.
image. So they're still like, there's no computer involved with them. And that's, yeah, everything, like the whole melting the face, like
Yeah.
that was like a real, they figured out how to melt a face. It's so crazy. Like it was just, every element of that movie is just awesome. Like
Yeah,
it really is.
it
Yeah.
had to be on my top, and then it was number one, and then you did it number two, and I was so I held back a bit because I knew I was going to be
Fair enough.
talking about it a little bit, but
Yeah.
so I'm just going to like review again my top five: Clash of the Titans at 5, then Lost Highway, Pulp Fiction, Halloween, and then Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yep.
Yours was Midnight Run, The Party, Star Wars: Phantom Menace, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Kill Bill.
That's right. Yeah.
That's awesome. So
Those are solid lists.
yeah, they're good lists. And then like again, like they all have impact on us one way or another. But there was probably movies that were left off that you're like, oh my God, there's got to be a way to fit this movie on this list, but I can't. So what were some of yours that were on your list, but didn't make it on for whatever?
So I actually have a top 10. The first
okay.
Yep, the first block of 5 are not in order, but they're there. So the to round out my top 10, I had Harold and Maude. I don't know if you've ever
I think for some reason I thought that would have been in your top 5, and I don't know why.
It was really close. Like that was one of those. I was very sad to bump it out because I watched that movie a lot as well. So Harold and Maude, starring Bud Cort and Ruth Gordon, from 1971, one of the darkest comedies you'll ever see. Also one of the greatest love stories you'll ever see. Great soundtrack, really good. Dark Crystal.
Oh yeah,
is in my top 10. I love Jim Henson. And that movie made a massive impact on me. From 1982, I was 11 years old. Huge. I still watch it all the time.
So much so that you love the series as well. That
Yeah,
you made me watch.
Yeah, just the movie. Just the movie I like. I just like the movie. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. I love Harry Potter, and that was a very exciting movie for me. Goodfellas. Robert De Niro, Ray Liotta, can't say more than that. I mean, it's classic. And rounding up the top 10 is Easy Rider.
I
Yep,
remember you were a big fan of that.
Huge. Peter Fonda, Dennis Hopper from 1969. One of the greatest encapsulation of the 60s culture that I think has ever been put on film. It was one of the first. It was one of the first appearances, if not, no, it wasn't the first, but it was one of the first for Jack Nicholson. He was in that movie too, and the soundtrack is phenomenal, and it's such a strong movie. That rounds up my top 10. Those are my top.
Mine, I think I've got like my rest of my 5. I didn't really officially do it, but I've got the ones I think would be on it. But again, these could be on or off or whatever. But Return of the Jedi was going to be on there. And I for whatever reason, that's my favorite Star Wars movie. And I don't know why. It's, even though the reason I say I don't know why, because I know a lot of people would say Empire over that one in that, but there's something about that movie I just love. I just love the way it's set up. I love Jabba's palace. Like it was such a great movie. Planet of the Apes.
Oh, like the original?
Yeah, I don't know why, but it's just that I get caught up in that movie every time I watch it.
Yeah.
Do the Right Thing would have been in there, like Spike Lee. There's something just like politically charged about that movie, and just so I like it. This is like one of the first times I'd seen Spike Lee's style, and there's something about it I loved. The Holy Grail.
Oh, right.
Like a movie that was like, they barely were able to make. I can't remember. There's a couple like musicians that helped. Like it was like Led Zeppelin or somebody helped like fund it, but it was so good. Like it was just like and again, very quotable.
Yeah.
Like the comedy of Monty Python was all in that. I'd have loved it. And then The Exorcist would have been in there probably as well.
Yes.
But again, another like almost perfect horror movie to me.
Yeah.
But more
And
supernatural, obviously, like than
this is the thing, is that I had totally forgotten about the Monty Python. Like when I was coming up with my list, for some reason, the meaning of life would have been in there for me. But there's so many movies. Like there's so
I
many
know
movies to
the
watch.
pick 5 is almost ridiculous because there's
It's
just like so much. Like I
yeah,
Purple Rain would have been like I played with that one,
that's
not because
ah,
it's a great movie, but because it just has impact on me because I'm a huge Prince fan. So,
yeah.
but I don't know
I'm
if it'd
actually
be
that was I was sure that was going to be in your top five.
no. It was very close. It was close. It was again. There's about 7 that were kind of dangling around that were in there. Like,
Yeah,
but I mean, like even like a New Jack City could have possibly been. But again, like I was looking at back at some of the movies and stuff that were like, like Conan and all these other movies. Lord of the
yeah.
Rings could have possibly been in there. Like
Well,
I had
I
so
was just
many.
I was just going to say neither of us chose Lord of the Rings. When those movies came out, you and I were just we literally at one point somebody asked us what the best movie trilogy of all time was. And we both agreed, even though we are huge, massive Star Wars fans, we
Yeah.
both agreed that the Lord of the Rings trilogy was the best
I still think
trilogy.
it's better than Star Wars as far
I,
as a
I,
solid trilogy. I think it's like,
I agree. But for some reason it didn't make either of our lists, which is interesting.
but again, because we're only picking 5, and it's like
Yeah,
it's.
it's
I mean,
hard.
it was in there at one point, and then it
Yeah,
dropped out. And again,
yeah,
like the 5 I gave before that could have been like anything could have been in that.
exactly. Like I also had in my bigger list, I had like Back to the Future
Yeah, I had that on mine as well.
in
Yeah,
there. Batman Returns.
I had
Uh,
Batman in
yeah,
mine.
they're like. I mean, I also had Apocalypse Now. It didn't make it to my list. You thought I'd have a war movie in there.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be one for sure. Yeah.
Apocalypse Now did make my bigger list, but it wasn't in there. But True Romance, another
Oh,
Tarantino film. But
that's another great
there's
one.
so many.
I had like Clockwork Orange was in
Oh,
my
right. Yes. Ah, I
Pee
forgot
Wee's
about that
Big.
one.
I know Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
Yes.
Like I even had like Willy Wonka, like in the Chocolate Factory. I love
Yeah.
that movie. I don't know why. Like the
Guilty.
original,
Yes.
The
Yeah.
Fog, The Thing. Like I just had like the
Uh-huh.
Birds. I love the Birds.
Yeah.
Like Hitchcock's Birds. Like I
Yeah.
like it better than
I
Psycho, to
know.
be honest. But it's like it's so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Like it's
But
just, I mean, that's the thing. Like I mean, it sounds easy enough to just come up with your top five, but because there are so many movies you watched over the course of your life, if you really sit down and try to do this, you
yeah.
realize it's really, really hard. Like it's really, and now that you've mentioned these other ones, I feel like I should revisit my top 10. Like I feel like
Well,
Clockwork Orange for me should have made the top 10, and I just forgot about it. So
yeah.
I
Well, that's the
so
thing. There's movies that like after I was starting to make it, I totally forgot like because you're kind of looking through your movie collection to see what kind of like
ah,
inspires you, but then you forget like certain movies. You're like, oh my god, I forgot about this, or like this is so much. There's so much material. Like there's like how many movies are there? There's thousands and like
millions.
millions of movies. Like it's like
Yeah.
it's hard to pick a top 5, but that's.
Sure.
I mean, I
And
think
that
we did pretty good.
now that I'm thinking about it, 2001 Space Odyssey should have been in there. Forgot about that one. The
You
Shining should have
you
been in
could go
there.
into any director and then go, oh my god, this is definitely got to be in there, and
Yeah.
like it's crazy the amount of movies like.
Oh, it's so like now I'm regretting all my choices.
That's what this was for, just to make you feel bad of like
Yes. But that's like what you said. These are the lists. That's the list that we came up with when we came up with it. Like that was the list.
yeah.
It definitely will change. I don't think anybody will have the same top 5 movies for their whole lives. Like
Yeah.
I don't think that's possible. You'll remember other movies and then they will take the place of ones that are in there. Like it's just
Like
there's
I'll
so
have a
many.
few of these. Like of my top 5, there's a few that'll always be a lock. Like Raiders Lost Ark will always be in my
Yes.
top 5, but
Yes.
there's some like that might drop out of my top 5, like
Yeah.
depending. Like Clash
Yeah.
could drop out. Like there's like a few that could definitely drop out. Like
Absolutely. Like
so.
it's just it's a non never ending list. Like it's a fluid list. It just keeps
And that's what's
changing.
great about films. You just watch
Yeah.
them, and there's just so many, and depending what kind of mood you're in, you can watch
Yes.
stuff. And it's like, and what could be your favorite movie today that you just watched? All of a sudden, you watch it again in 2 years, and you're like, it's not as good as I thought it was. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Some
it's
some movies just don't hold up.
yeah,
Yeah, and some
but
do. Like I for a while had Godzilla -1 in my top 10. I've only seen
yeah,
it once, but I
yeah.
really felt like it was. But then I realized it can't be there yet. It
Well,
hasn't earned its place quite yet.
Yeah, well, that's like Asteroid City. I liked it when I first watched it, and it's not that I didn't like it the second time. I started to. It wasn't as good as the first time I watched it.
Right.
Like, and I started really seeing like some of the things I didn't like about it. And
it takes a long time for a movie to really make an impact.
Yeah,
like I think it does. Like, initial impacts are something, but if it can hang around for years and still give you that same feeling, then it's a good, like, it's a special movie. Right?
Like, how many times do you see a movie and go, "Oh my god, I gotta watch that again"? Like, I see that all the time. Like, oh, I haven't seen this in so long. I gotta watch. Like, I can see behind me, like when I see RoboCop back there, and I'm like, I gotta watch RoboCop again. I haven't watched that in ages. Like, it's such a good movie. Like,
true. Yeah. This is fun. I enjoyed doing.
This was good.
So we've decided, because we started with our top 5 movies, that episode 2, part 2 of this podcast, which will be in a week or two, is going to be our top 5 TV shows.
Again, I'm like, this is so hard.
Yeah. So we're going for movies this week. Our next episode will be our top 5 TV shows. I don't know if that's going to be harder or easier. I don't know. I'm not sure. We've already started working on it, but I don't know.
You can kind of throw like I haven't got. We'll talk about it when we get to it. But there's some of my parameters don't work with TV, so
yes.
We'll talk about that when we get to it. But we'll leave it at that. And those are our top 5. That was a lot of fun to do, but also very stressful.
Very stressful.
A lot of high anxiety moments. As I'm like, oh my god, what if I picked them wrong? But it really doesn't matter, because again, like I said, they could change at any given moment.
That's
like,
right.
It depends what I feel like watching this week.
Yeah. We'd love to hear from you. Like, we'd love to hear your top 5. If you're listening to this, like, leave some titles in the comments, because your top 5 might be something we haven't seen yet, and we might watch it and think, this is awesome, this should be in our top 5, or maybe it's a movie we've forgotten about. So absolutely share with us your 5.
Yeah, if we see it, we'll talk about it in the beginning of the next episode, because I'd like to see what people sent, and see what they have out there. Because again, like, there's always a movie. Like, again, we mentioned movies. You mentioned some that I'm like, oh, why is that not in my top even 20 right now? Like, that's crazy. So it's like, you just forget about certain movies and whatever. But anyways, we'll let's go at that, and we'll just have higher anxiety post this and think, oh, why didn't I pick this? Why didn't I not pick this? So that's it for the show. Again, go on our socials, tell us what you think, and make sure you like and subscribe and all that great stuff. And we'll see you next time on Loop and Larry, Guardians of Geek.
Bye-bye.
Produced by Matthew C. Loop and Lawrence Simner. A Loop and Larry production.
Bueller.
He likes it. Hey, Mikey.
Bueller.
Bad news. Fog is getting thicker.
And Leon's getting larger.
Inconceivable.
Brian's right. It's an elf.
Wax on.
Does Barry Manilow know that you raid his wardrobe?
Oh, Captain, my captain.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Wax off.